Hey guys, welcome to JPlays. I'm Iceman. This is my playthrough of Dawn of the Tiberium Age. In the previous videos we went through all of the Route A of Covert Revolt. We're now on to Route B, with the first mission, overall mission 9, but first mission of the Route B, entitled Investigation. You need to perform investigation of government activities to check whether the performed atrocities were intentionally ordered by the High Command or whether they have been instead performed on the initiative of individual units. This will tell you whether you need to act against the High Command or only seek punishment for the individual units. In case things go bad, some evidence will surely be helpful to shift the opinion of GDI as well as your own troops. From some initial investigation during military leadership meetings, you've learned that a tech center in the heart of government territory hosts communication data between different government officials. Infiltrate the tech center with a spy. Once inside, find a terminal that contains the communications data. Copy the data, then get back to the entry point. Avoid dog patrols on the way, they can detect your spy. So we need to infiltrate the tech center in the government base, grab the communication data from the console, and then get back to the car at the entry point. Nothing. That's weird. Okay. Investigation into the committed atrocities is not going to be very straightforward. Who could have information on them, and where and how could it be obtained? Even talking about it to the wrong person could be dangerous for you if Ivanov truly is behind the massacres. While you've been pondering this dilemma, the battles have kept raging on. Government forces have made surprisingly little progress, even after conquering the heavy vehicle factory. After some intelligence work, the main reason for this appears to be Nod's Ezekiel's wheeled tanks. Stealth tanks that perform surgical strikes on bases, harvesters, and vulnerable supplies. Another problem is the surprisingly fast rate of Tiberium growth on communist-controlled territory, which gives the enemy a high amount of Tiberium to harvest for resources. And a third problem is that the communists seem to get significant extra manpower in the form of mercenaries from other ex-Soviet countries. With the enemy in control of the eastern state border, you are unable to stop the flow. We have often been discussing these three issues with Ivanov at the government military HQ. With the help of your most loyal contacts, these meetings have allowed you to conduct careful research into internal government files. There is an archive of communications, both physical and digital mail, and reports between many high-ranking government officials that is kept on a server located in a government tech center. The tech center itself is a large government base that is situated far from the front line. Infiltrating it will hopefully answer your questions. Going there yourself could raise suspicions, so it is safer to send a spy. There is little room for failure. You need the spy to avoid patrols, investigate the tech center, fetch the documents from the archive, and escape. This is your best chance of discovering the truth about government involvement in atrocities. If the spy gets caught, the internal security levels will surely be raised within all government-controlled territory. Alright, showtime. So I'm guessing we only have control of a spy?
Reporting. Of course. Very well. Very well. Of course. Of course. At once. At once. Very well.
Easier said than done, I'm sure.
Agreed. At once. Very well. Of course. Agreed. Agreed. At once. Agreed. Of course. Agreed. At once. At once. Very well. Agreed. Very well. Very well.
Okay, that was
First objective met.
a lot easier than I thought it would be. Ah, and now we got the other side of it.
Reporting. At once. Agreed. Very well. At once. At once. At once. Very well. Of course. At once. Agreed. Very well. At once. Of course. Of course. Agreed. Of course. Very well. Agreed. At once. Of course. Very well. Very well. At once. Agreed. Agreed. Very well. At once. Very well. Of course. Agreed once. Very well. Agreed. Agreed. Of course. At once. Of course.
Okay, this has been very easy. I was expecting this to be a lot harder.
Second objective
At
met.
once. Of course. Agreed. At once. Agreed. quarters. Agreed. Agreed. At once. Agreed. Agreed. At once. Very well. Very well. At once. At once. Of course. Agreed. At once. Agreed. Agreed. At once. At once.
Okay, this was very easy.
Yes, sir. Of course. Agreed. At once. Very well. Of course. Very well. At once.
This was an absolute cakewalk.
Agreed. Agreed. Very well. Of course. Very well. At once.
This mission could have used some bonus objectives, you know? It's like, yes, your main objective is for this, but you could also do this to
Very
find
well.
out additional info or something.
Agreed.
Third objective met. Mission accomplished.
Very, very, very easy mission. No challenge, almost at all. The communication data you gathered was vast. There was no quick way to go through it all, dozens and dozens of pages of letters and reports. But finally, after spending many sleepless nights on them, the situation seemed clear. The highest military leadership has been told to neutralize any civilians that could potentially side with the communist movement. Civilians who seemed unlikely to change their mind to cooperate with Ivanov's government were to be especially targeted. Only Ivanov himself wields the power for giving this kind of order. Troika has not executed this order very efficiently, which is not surprising from him. Troika has not been completely passive. He has given his subordinates total freedom to loot and destroy the homes of any potential dissidents. Thus, while individual soldiers are involved, Ivanov and his government can be seen as responsible for the slaughters. Your next steps will have to be prepared carefully. Alright, so that was investigation. As I said, that was super duper easy. I got that whole thing done in under 15 minutes. Alright, so the next video will be the second one, Flight. See you in that video. Guys, have a good one.